What impacts your mortgage pre-approval? Hey everybody, today we're going to talk about pre-approvals. A lot of questions I get around what impacts my pre-approval, why did I not get a higher pre-approval? Sometimes it seems so minor, the details that can affect a strong pre-approval versus a not so strong. So we're coming to you from the Canadian side, Canadian mortgage rules, Canadian perspective of pre-approvals. So three things that we're going to talk about are income, different types of income that we're going to talk about credit, like credit score and what impact that has. And we're going to talk about down payment. So how much down payment do you need? What is good to do? So talk about different perspective from different angles of that. First of all, of course, the income. To get a strong pre-approval, to get a good pre-approval, and ultimately to get your mortgage approved, you need to have a strong income. So yeah, the type of income that we work with, there can be all kinds of different type income structures that people have. And that's why getting a mortgage is sometimes it's not necessarily a one fits all kind of product, because we're not dealing with just one type of income. So your income might be T4, you're working an hourly rate, you have an hourly rate job, whereas another income type is also T4, but it's a salary, it's like an annual salary position, right? So those are already two different structures of income. And the main thing is, if we're looking at income, we need to have a strong positive income. So if your T4 has a good number on there, hey, that'll help you. Income is the main factor that decides how high your pre-approval will go. There's other factors that will impact it somewhat, but if you're looking at a $400,000 house, you're gonna need more money, more income, a higher number on your T4 than if you're looking at getting a $250,000 house. So those are different things that can impact it. A big difference is if you're dealing with T4 income versus self-employed income. And in the self-employed income, there's different programs. The Canadian mortgage space has tried to make it easier to get approved for self-employed people, basically be able to use business for self a little bit easier. But it's still different and it's still difficult because oftentimes, hey, you've got X amount of expenses that you can claim, but in a business, it's not hard to have a high gross income, total income, but then you're paying materials and labor and different things like that. And it's the net income that's, quite important when you're looking at a mortgage pre-approval. So you may have a really strong gross income, but if the lender looks at it and says most of that gross income is actually for the purpose of running your business, we can't really claim that as income because you have to expense X amount, whatever that amount would be, in keeping your business going, right? So that can be a bit of a tricky one. So net income is very important. There are some programs that you can use for add backs where we add back income to be able to approve better. But in reality, the net income is going to be very important. The income that you pay tax on is going to be very important. And if you're incorporated, it's a little bit different again, right? Because then you could either pay yourself in dividends or you can pay yourself with T4 out of your own company. You're still considered self-employed at that point, but you don't have the same income structure again. And then we could state income, right? Because let's say you take out a smaller income, but your company made a lot more. We could state, hey, actually you made X amount more because the money just stayed in the company, right? So there's different ways of looking at income, but ultimately the net income will be what impacts how high your pre-approval goes. From there, we go to credit. And oftentimes, I'll hear the statement, hey, I didn't have enough credit to get pre-approved for X amount or whatever. And so in some cases, what that means is credit worthiness. Whereas when I look at credit, I often just look at, credit worthiness, of course, but I'm looking at the credit score. And is this possible? If you have a 650, 680 score in that area, we should be able to get a pre-approval and get a final approval done, if there's no major problems. Like things that impact credit will be obviously missing payments. So phone bill, be careful for the phone bill. If you're changing providers, make sure you cancel the old phone provider, just because if they send you that final bill and somewhere it gets lost in the mail or something, you want to make sure that you can pay off that old phone provider, because I see a lot of bad credit because of missing a phone bill. And when you're switching providers, making sure that you follow up and close out that old account so that you have no hit on your credit, right? Phone bill payments, credit card payments, loan payments. Of course, if you're missing payments, that's going to affect your credit worthiness. And that score is basically trying to assess your credit worthiness, right? Like how do you handle when you get credit? If you have a $1,000 credit card. Another impact is if you have a credit card, $1,000 credit card, is utilization. So let's say you're at 90% full, not 90% utilized. The impact on your credit score will be in a negative way. So you're gonna lower your score because you owe 90% on your credit card, right? So if you have a higher credit card, you can, as long as you stay under 50%, you should be okay. Ideally, you don't want to owe for a long period of time more than like 30% on your credit card, or else it will start to drive your score down. They look at utilization of your credit, how maxed out are you, right? So there's a few factors that deal with credit score, but ultimately I'm looking at the score and saying, if you're at a 680 or higher, we can get you approved. And then we go back to income to see how high you would approve for. The next and the last step is down payment. This is probably the one that can give us the biggest headache because you need an X amount of money. So minimum down payment in Canada is 5%. I think the US had programs of 0 down at one point. The US had programs of 3.25, but in Canada, it's a 5% minimum down. If you're looking at getting like a personal home, like a low interest, first time home buyer kind of financing. So you need 5% down payment. A couple of ways you can get it is, of course, savings. We need to show 90 days of bank statements. You've saved this money. Here's 90 days proof that you've saved this money. Another way is if you have a family member that's going to help you out, so gifted, they have to sign a gift letter, and at that point we can see, gifted down payment. Or if you sell an asset, so you have a camping trailer, you have a truck, something like that you sell, and show a bill of sale, so now you can show proof of down payment. The one thing to keep in mind with down payment, if you're under 20% down, you have to pay an insurer fee. So the mortgage insurers have to insure a mortgage that's under 20%. So if you're at 5, 10, 15%, the premium goes down how much you pay them. But at 20%, you don't have to pay a mortgage insurer. So if you can do a 20% down, you save that fee. But in a lot of cases, doing a 5% down, it's a really great option that you can come in and put a 5% down and get into home ownership and not have to wait until you have the 20% saved up. So guys, that's about it. If you have any questions, let me know. Comment. Let me know what your experience has been getting pre-approvals. And if there's any questions, anybody has any concerns, questions, let me know. I'd love to be able to guide and help you guys through how can we become homeowners? How can we grow into that step of life where we can increase that pre-approval? Maybe we're looking at a property, we can't pre-approve for it. Hopefully this video has helped to explain possibly why that could be. If you have a lot of debt, of course, one thing I didn't mention, if you have a lot of debt, that'll impact your ability to borrow because that income is based off of a TDS GDS ratio. So GDS being gross debt servicing, which is your mortgage payment, your heating costs, and then also your property taxes for the property that you're looking to buy. So that can be 39% on an insured mortgage. But then when you go, and that insured mortgage is under 20%. But then when you go to the TDS, that is the same 3 items: mortgage payment, heating bill, the heating cost, and the property tax, but it also adds any type of side debt you have, so credit cards or vehicle loans. And those can be real killers to the pre-approval amount. So you're looking at a $400,000 house, you have a really strong income, but you have 2 vehicle loans. So that's going to really decrease your pre-approval amount, not because you don't have a strong income or strong credit, but because your income is largely utilized, it's largely used up. So guys, let's be careful. I often say this: if you have a strong income, income is like a shovel. It can either dig you a hole or pile up a nice pile for you. And so, in a lot of cases, income allows us to finance a lot of things, right? Everybody says, go ahead. But the problem becomes when we want to finance a mortgage where there's very strict guidelines, because now all of those things come into account and the utilization really matters. So guys, use that income to your benefit, to your advantage. Have a purpose, be intentional with your income, with your credit, with paying your bills, paying all of those things, and with your down payment. Find ways to save up that down payment to get into home ownership, and you can use your income to no longer dig that hole and to find yourself in a real bondage, but rather to put up a bit of a pile and to become homeowners and to use equity to grow some serious wealth. Thanks for watching, guys.